I am Araceli, a wealth advisor, real estate investor in the United States and Canada, and creator of Wealthy Women in Real Estate. Every week, I meet with Colette, a real estate broker and a real estate investor in Canada. We come together to talk about all things real estate investing and how to increase your wealth. Join us. Welcome, everyone. This is Araceli, Transition Wealth Advisor and Real Estate Investor in the US and Canada. And just remember, my specialty is the US. So if you are looking to do or buy a property in the US, let me know in the comments. But also remember to subscribe if you want to have more tips, tricks, and everything all about real estate. So I'm here with Colette. Colette, can you introduce yourself?
Yes, but I have to apologize. I think I have to sneeze, so excuse me if I sneeze in the middle of everything.
Yeah.
But I know that's what happens. We're live. Like this is real. This is real life, right? Anyway, so I apologize ahead of my sneeze. But anyway, let me start again. My name is Colette Rabba. I am a residential real estate broker in the GTA, that is the Greater Toronto Area. I like West End, Mississauga, Oakville, Burlington, Brampton, anything that's on the west. Is my specialty. Araceli and I love to talk about real estate, and especially you investors out there that you have all these amazing questions. That's what we're here for. We'd like to answer questions, and also it helps us hone our skills and get better and be able to answer these questions. So we have a fantastic question for you today, and it's quite an elaborate one, but it's something that you really need to think about before you even get started, or even before you think of the money. The finances always have something to do with what you're going to do. Is that correct? Am I wrong?
Oh, for sure. Money touches everything. That's my say, right?
That's right. So it goes hand in hand. Let's say it that way. Things go hand in hand. If you buy a property, we had this great question come to us about having a property that has another building on it that has to be renovated. So they asked me, what should I do? Should I renovate the property? So you have a couple, and this is a very specific scenario. So there's always options. We always like to talk options out with each other too, to say, well, what would you do? Araceli might have a totally different idea than I do, because when it comes down to the money, to the reasons why, to the use of the property, to the longevity of it, these are all questions we get to ask our clients before they even touch a penny.
Exactly. So basically, the way that we're going to be talking about this today is, what are the options that you have when you are looking at renovating, purchasing, or doing any changes in the property? So what are the exit strategies? How do you go about knowing what to do with it?
Right. So as we always like to talk real time and real property. So that way, when we give you examples, it might not be exactly what you're going through, but it's something to go through the process with us to say, okay, this makes sense. This is how we analyze a property before we say, yeah, go nuts and throw money at it.
Exactly. So I'm just going to tell you a quick story, because I work with a lot of clients, my coaching clients, that come to me and it says, well, I just want to buy property. And buying property doesn't make you an investor. Okay. Buying property, you buy property. That's all you do. You really have to step back and think about what you want. Do you want to flip houses to get a chunk of money? Do you want to rent properties to get some cash flow in? Or you just want to find a property that you're going to be enjoying yourself, and that's it, right?
Well, yeah, and so let's go through this specific scenario. So there is a property that has a house on it that is absolutely functioning, it's livable, but it's a vacation property. There is a secondary building on the property that is like a shed or like a barn. So there's no electrical, there's no power, there's no water, nothing going to it. So when you have this scenario where you just have this secondary building that could generate revenue, but also it doesn't have to. So I'm telling you the whole very specific story. It doesn't have to generate revenue, but also at the same time, this property may or may not, well, obviously, there's the exit strategy. What is the exit strategy? That is always the first question we always ask our investors. Are you doing it to sell the property? Are you doing it to improve and wait on the property or to rent it? Or are you just doing it for your own, it's your own property? Yeah, and you want to enjoy it. So that's question number one, I believe, right?
So I'm always going to take you back. I always take my clients back to this. The question is, what is your financial position? Because if you have the money to refurbish this building, then there is a question about how much do you want to enjoy it. You already have the money. You don't are using it for anything else. Now, if you want to borrow the money, like getting a mortgage in order to do this, then what is your financial position? Can you support that mortgage on the ongoing basis without having a tenant, right?
You're my money lady. You always got to bring me back to that. Yes, absolutely.
Absolutely. And the thing is, or are you, after you finish that structure, renovating it, are you going to be renting it either on an Airbnb full time or, whatever? Doesn't matter.
Can I add one thing to that as well? Let's just say, again, if we're, the scenario is not an investment property as you are going to rent it or you're going to resell it, but let's just say you're going to enjoy it yourself for whatever amount of time. The one thing I have to add to this that I'm always afraid for people is over improving. Does the area actually warrant this kind of building? Is there value that you won't, let's say the labor cost alone is going to cost you way more than what you'd be able to sell it tomorrow. Shit hits the fan sometimes and you have to sell. You don't have a choice. So if you spend all this money and you over improve, or like you were saying with the finances, and you have to sell it right away and you've borrowed it at whatever, let's say 6% interest rate, and then you have to pay a penalty because you have to cash out. What is that number going to look like? And I think that is the hardest thing with any project.
Correct.
To understand the what ifs.
Yeah. So there's two things that I always do, no matter what, whether I'm flipping a property or whether I'm going to keep it for rental. The property needs to meet both criteria because you never know, right? If I decide, like right now, I'm in the middle of one property and I know it meets the criteria for flipping and I know it meets the criteria for renting. I don't know yet what I'm going to do until next month, right? So, but I have those two options. And I'm going to give you an example of one of my clients. He's looking to get cash flow.
Okay.
So what he's done is he bought properties here in Ohio. He lives in California, and he bought a property for $175,000, and that I think is a pretty good price, right? He has a mortgage on it. However, the rent is only $1,400 a month. It's a single family home. It is.
I think the numbers still work out though, depending on what he borrowed.
It is very tight. Okay, so when I'm looking to just analyze a property for rental, I always am looking for a 1% or more of what the purchase price is. So if he's telling me that he bought for $175, I'm expecting to have $1,700 of rent or $1,800 of rent in order for me to have a decent cash flow. He's getting a lot less than that, right? So you have to really analyze. And the other thing that he did as well is he said, I just wanted to buy it turnkey. I didn't want to take a look at renovating or anything. So we looked at the comparables.
Yeah.
And he paid approximately $15,000 more to what the average house is selling on the street.
Okay. Yeah. So this is the interesting thing. Sorry to cut you off, but all I want to say was, you guys see, I have my pen in my hand, because what we're talking about are all numbers, and if they don't make sense to you, talk to someone that understands the worst case scenario, best case scenario, mid case scenario, because all these things make a difference. And just to add to that, And I want to hear the rest of the story.
Yep.
Take your pens out, take your calculators out, figure out even the scenario what Araceli is talking about. And I'm going to tell the little story as well, but please finish. It's very, very interesting.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm just writing everything down.
So like he understands that he paid a little bit more than what he's supposed to, but this is so key for investors. You usually make your money on the buy, because
Right.
if there's something that happens to his financial situation, he's gonna have to wait 2, 3, maybe 4 years before he can actually recoup the money that he put in. If you buy on a fair market value, in my opinion, that house, he should have bought it for 140 at most, right? So he could sell it for 160, which is the average that is right now. But now he paid 175, which is 15,000 above the average house on the street. So it is not a bad thing, but the thing is, you don't know what is going to happen now. So his cash flow is very reduced, so he doesn't have a lot of room for not having a tenant,
Well,
vacancy
sorry,
loss, all that kind of stuff, right?
can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Did he do his numbers based on 175 and what mortgage rate, or did he pay cash for that?
No, he has a mortgage on it. I don't know what he did, because when he came to me, he already had the property. We just did
Okay.
the analysis after.
Okay, so that's very important. The other thing that I want to say too, I don't know if it's the same in the US, but in Canada, when a bank does an appraisal,
Mhm.
the appraiser, if you, and this is the bad thing about Canada, a lot of times when you buy a property, you don't actually see the appraisal,
Yeah,
which is terrible. So
I
you
know.
have to, no, because they say, "Oh, I'm doing it for the bank." So if you get the appraiser to say, "I will give you my appraisal,"
Yeah,
they will show the land value and they'll separate it from the house value. So if there's a structure on that land, they will separate the two, saying land value is this much, house value is this much. And then that way you can make an informed decision. If the house is a shack and it's falling down, then you can say, I'm not going to put another penny into the house. I have to rebuild it. But then you know going ahead
yeah,
what you're actually spending the money on. Is it the land value or the property, the building that it's on, or a
exactly. So
mix?
that's why it's so important to get to know the area, because from area to area, even within the same province or the same state or the same county, prices are going to vary because the structures are different. You may have a multifamily on the same street that a single family home. So it's not a comparable, right? Even though one sold for this, the other one will not sell for that, right? So,
And and what am I going to say? You have to get an inspector. That should be my line.
yeah,
But even an inspector will not be able to see certain things. I have gone to houses that have a crawl space
yeah,
and the inspector could not get into the crawl space. It was all closed up. So to really say get an inspector, yeah, but you have to know sometimes you have to, by the grace of the powers that be,
yeah,
you're buying what, there's a line on real estate MLS sheets that say as is where is.
yeah,
That means you get what you see with your own eyes. I don't care what inspectors come out. I don't care what, who else, the contractors, the builders come out and see it. That's why builders
yeah.
always underbid, or sorry, they get the houses because they know what they're looking at and they are prepared to take the house down. They've already done their numbers.
Exactly. So the one thing that I really truly recommend to anybody is, if you have a pen or a pencil, put everything on paper, because that doesn't cost you anything but just a little bit of time to try to come up with different strategies. And one strategy would be either, do you have the money all for yourself? Are you going to enjoy the property, or do you want to put a tenant? Do you want to do it for rental? What is it that you want to use it, or you just want to simply improve your property to make it more valuable, right?
Right, right.
But it has to, at the end of the day, to me, if you are a true investor, you're always looking to put work into improving something that is going to give you a return.
But
That's basic.
don't overdo it.
Yeah, you have to look at where you are. You cannot just put gold everything everywhere, because if the neighborhood doesn't support it, you also have to think about it. What if I need to sell it? And some people say, oh, I'll never sell. No, 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 no. It doesn't matter. You think that way today. You never know. You got to think about it as if you were going to sell it. Did I over improve, or
Right.
did I do it right for this type of neighborhood?
Right. So I actually just something else comes to mind. I have a friend who owns a cottage, and it's quite up north.
Yeah,
So and it was her parents bought it years and years ago. They enjoyed it as a family.
yeah.
There was a brother and a sister, and then the parents said, "Hey, we're retiring. It's way too much work for us. Who wants it? Who wants to pay? You guys buy it from us, and we'll
Yeah.
give you a good deal. But still, you guys have to make some kind of financial investment into it."
Yeah.
Neither of them wanted it.
Oh,
So,
what? Why?
but that's no, no, no. But that's the thing. One lives so it's in Quebec. So I'm thinking, they both live in Ontario. For them to get to that property is like I'm talking 5, 6 hours away. And then it's very seasonal. You can only use it when the
Yeah.
weather is nice. I don't even know if there's running water. Like it's a real like rustic place. But that's my point, or your point as well, is to say you might not think you think this is going to be inherited for generations and generations, and everybody's going to love it and everybody's going to care for it,
Yeah.
and the family's going to enjoy it for many generations. And then even the second generation says, no thanks, our lives are too busy, it's way too far, I'd rather take my 100 grand, let's say, that I need to invest in the property, and go on vacations every year for the next 10 years. Maybe not 10 years, but let's say whatever, maybe 10 years. Yeah, it's a lot
That's
of
why.
money.
This is the thing for me. Like, there's always the situation changes sometimes from one day to another. So it doesn't matter if it is going to be for you in the short term, but you got to think of the what if. What if I need to sell it? What if I need to rent it? What if I need to just to enjoy it? Can I carry this property? So
Exactly. Yes.
then you
So
have all of the options, because if something changes along the way and you have to make a change, you already had it figured out. And then you say, I have option A, B, C, whatever. If fits me better, I can do it.
and then option D is if you win the lottery, then
Oh,
what
well,
would
that's, yeah,
Yeah,
that's,
no, but that's really in essence, like, we can give you real-time scenarios of like Araceli said with her guy in Ohio. There's other properties that people just want to enjoy and for themselves. And what does that look like? And that also has to do with talking to a local real estate agent to say, okay, these are the projections for the
yeah,
next how many years. Nobody's making land anymore. I really, and Araceli, I think you'll agree with me, I really like investing in property and land.
yeah,
So the other thing too was, when you think of, okay, so here's a property that's already standing and it might have to be torn down, but the price is more expensive than if I just buy land. Like here's a property, let's say there's a plot right next door, everything is the same except there's no house, and maybe it's worth half the price. What would you buy? Would you buy the land, or would you buy the house that's already there that needs to be torn down?
well, you got to look at scenarios. What does the property look like right now? Is it
Okay,
in a good place? How much do I need to put in order to
okay.
make
So
it
I'm
work?
talking about a complete teardown. So the house is
Okay.
not valuable at all.
Uh, you also have to take into account what is the tear down cost, right?
Yeah, that's one thing.
And
There's
then
something I'm looking for. I want you to say something, and I'm
oh,
waiting.
I don't know what it is, but to me would be is what is the tear down cost and the time frame in order to for you to build it, because there's going to be permits and that is going to take an architect to design all of that, right?
Okay, but that's same. If you're
Okay.
tearing down the house, you're going to have to get. So what I was looking for was the cost of utilities,
Mm-hmm.
getting the city to put in the plumbing, to put in the electrical, to
Yeah.
put like the hydro, if there's gas line, if there's all that stuff. That is so valuable to have it already running onto the property. If you're in a rural, let's say rural area where there is no city electric, like electrical is the biggest, hydro is the biggest thing. How will the municipality run hydro to the property. And believe it or not, still in Ontario,
Yeah.
that is a long, long process. Number one, it is a costly process. So maybe in the States it's a little bit different. When it's in a city, it's a little bit different.
In the city, it's a little bit different because if you have a house that has been torn down, that happens here a lot in Ohio. There's lots of
Right,
places that you can see house, and a land, right?
right, right.
So you know if it is an already an established street that all the infrastructure is already there. You still
Thank
you still have to get the city to reconnect it, and maybe you have to run a couple more lines from this street to the house, but the structure and the infrastructure is already there. You have the gas
Right.
line, you have the hydro line, you have the sewer line, which is very important. So you have to take that into consideration if you're looking at building on a land, right?
Absolutely.
Because if
Right.
there's the scenario that Colette mentions that is somewhere out in the boonies, you may have to bring all the infrastructure, which sometimes the city doesn't do it when you want, not on your timeline. They'll do it, okay, we'll do it, and it's going to cost you this much, but we don't have it scheduled until 2 years from now. So
Exactly, exactly. So this is why when you really, so again, we'll go through I was writing them down. So the things to analyze the property
yeah,
is number one, the exit strategy.
Yeah.
So that, why are you doing it? That's your biggest question is why? Why do I want to buy a piece of land? Do I not see anything else as far as, a piece of property that I really
Yeah.
like in the area that I like? So that's number one. Number two is financial position. So this is the thing that when it comes to either buying land or buying a property that is a tear down, a scenario could happen like that. Financially, that will give, when you answer that question, you will know this is the way to go or this is the way
Yeah.
to go. And
And I
time.
just wanted to add something for the land. If you're thinking about buying a land that you may say, oh, I want to build later on, you also have to think about some banks will not finance a piece of land, or they
I
will
think all banks in Canada,
yeah.
as far as I know.
I'm not saying that that is an absolute 100%, but you have to look at, can I get the financing on that piece of land?
Right.
Also, you're gonna have minimum taxes. Obviously, there's not gonna be utilities, but also
Sure.
think about that and what it's gonna cost you to maintain it. If you need to mow the lawn or just keep it, it's got to be safe for everybody, right?
Very good point. Yes, thank you for bringing that up. So also, your number three was to meet both, for investors, meet both criteria of either flipping or holding and renting.
That's right.
So that's the best case scenario when it meets both criteria. So you make money both ways. I wanted to add a number four, which is the market is always changing. So when you do your numbers, pad it a little bit, because if mortgage rates go up, land value goes up or goes down, these are things, best case scenario, you want to be prepared and not feel like, oh, now I'm stuck.
Yep.
I have to sell. It's a down market. What do I do? It's never going to be perfect, but know your numbers. That's back to number two. And number five is know the worth of the structure, what the structure is worth and what the land is worth. And that you can get from an appraiser.
Yeah.
So, oh my God, that's so much. My head is full. So, did we answer your question? That's the question.
So just basically boils down to know your strategies and put them all on paper, because if one doesn't work at that time, you can always go back to it. But if one works and the other doesn't, then you might be limited to only doing one thing. And if it doesn't work, then obviously you're not going to be in good shape.
Okay, and you know me.
Yeah.
I have to add something.
What is?
And it's a pain in the butt. It's the emotional tie that people get with properties. And if you can set that aside, when you're an investor, it's much harder when you do it for yourself to say, oh, I want the gold, everything. And it's like, you can't be emotionally invested in a property to that extent.
Yeah.
Where the numbers don't work out and you are going to be financially in trouble. So that's what we want to avoid by talking about it and going through the scenario and saying, listen, you can have everything you want, but don't fall in love. Is that terrible?
I know sometimes it is actually really hard because when you're working on a property and you know that you get emotionally involved and invested. So do I a little bit, but you know what I mean? Like you always have to go back to your numbers. That's your guiding. Your
Right.
guiding
But
piece of
you know
paper.
what? I have to be devil's advocate here. And you know what? A lot of the times it's when you think of your own investments,
Mhm.
I can tell people all day long what to do, but when it's my own investments, I do fall in love. I fully admit it. And it's also not always about the numbers. I know you don't like hearing that, but really, there is something to be said about having this life and living it to the fullest and learning from the experience and enjoying the process. If it is so stressful and it's stressing you out, don't even continue. Like it doesn't matter if the numbers work out. If it's not for you, it's not for you. Oh, and there goes my phone.
Yeah.
So that's it. Like it's
No,
really something.
absolutely. I agree with you. Sometimes you do have to put sometimes aside the money, but not in all cases. Remember, you have to live somewhere, and I love where I live,
Yeah.
and you always want to improve it. You always want to put this, and even though it's not going to give you a return per se, because you enjoy it. So
And you
this
know
is
what?
a little part, right?
I have never regretted buying any of the properties I've bought, but I regret the ones I haven't bought. How about that?
I know, but the thing is, we would want to buy 100 properties, but sometimes you have to go
Well,
back and say, what is my financial position? Can I do this? Right?
that's right. That goes back to our
Always the same
number.
thing, right? So
It's
you
always
just
the
have
same thing.
you have to always keep that in mind. So with that said,
Absolutely.
I think that's enough for today. There was a lot, guys. So you got to come back and listen to it again because there was a lot said. But I hope this answered your question. Just remember to make sure that you have a strategy and that you know what you want out of the property and that you have more than one strategy in the case something happens. So that's all we
Absolutely.
have for you today. So
My
thank
head is full.
you. Thank you, Colette, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye. Thank you for being here on the show. Please remember to subscribe and hit the notification bell to get notified when there are more shows available. And if you would like to have more information on how to start investing in real estate, please visit my website at www.aracelihernandez.com. Thank you.